Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I take this time to urge my colleagues to find a way to proceed with the Expire Act that Senator Wyden and Senator Hatch have worked on. I'm proud to be a member of the Senate Finance Committee, where this legislation was passed by a unanimous vote in our committee. We had an extensive markup where members were offering numerous amendments. This deals with expiring tax provisions that if we don't take action, we will find that those who depend upon this tax policy remaining in effect, such as small business owners, students, people who use certain benefits, some of our energy provisions, will find that that policy expires at the end of the year. And if that happens, what happens, quite frankly, is that it's already expired in some provisions, and if we don't extend it, there'll be continued uncertainty in our tax code. So it also means that if we don't pass this bill, it effectively raises taxes on a large number of Americans. So it will affect those who ride our transit systems. It already is affecting those who ride our transit systems. So it's already having an impact because of the fact that we haven't taken timely action. We can't wait any longer on the passage of this bill. And I just really wanted to take this time to express my strong support for giving a fair shot to all Americans that depend upon a stable tax policy. And here we're finding our inaction is causing more uncertainty, and it affects job creation in our community. So let me just give you a few examples. Small business depends upon the passage of this bill. Why do I say that? Well, the research and development tax credit is very much at stake here. Small businesses depend upon the help in the tax code to take risks, to invest in new innovation. More innovation occurs through small businesses than large businesses. More jobs are created through small businesses than large businesses. They need a tax code that's friendly for small business owners to accumulate capital, to take risks, to develop the next cure for a dread disease, the next technology that will help us deal with cybersecurity, and the list goes on and on and on. But without the extension of the R&D tax credit, the research and development tax credit, it means that small businesses particularly are put at a tremendous disadvantage. We have the expensing provision, which is a very popular provision, which allows small business owners to be able to take off immediately the costs of their investments in their company. It's bipartisan. We've always thought that's a good idea. Well, now, if you're a small business owner and you're trying to plan as to your next investment, but you don't know what the tax policy is going to be, you're going to withhold. You're not going to make those plans to put in that new piece of equipment that perhaps expands capacity or makes you more efficient so you can hire more people, sell more product, create more jobs. But if you don't have the certainty in the tax code, you put off that decision, delaying the acquisition. And maybe when you get back to it, times are different, and maybe it's more challenging, and you never go forward with that expansion. Those jobs are lost forever. So literally the passage of this bill helps small business owners in being able to make decisions to expand opportunity and create more jobs. And that's at jeopardy if we do not move this bill forward. One of the provisions that I've worked on with other members of the Senate is reforms in the S corporation. S corporation is preferred to be used by smaller companies because it allows them to pass through their income and expenses as if they're an individual taxpayer, avoiding the double taxation of a C corporation. Well, there's been changes over time on how businesses operate, and we need to reform the S corporation provisions so that they're friendlier towards smaller businesses and give them more flexibility on the use of this structure. So these are provisions that we want incorporated into the Expire Act that's on the floor. Let me mention one other provision that I think is very important in New Jersey and in Maryland and in all of our states, and that is we have yet to recover fully from the housing crisis. We still have too many people in Maryland, and I'm sure the presiding officer would agree in New Jersey, where they're in danger of losing their homes through foreclosure. We still have a disconnect between many of the balances that are on mortgages and the value of the home. So it's in everyone's interest to readjust the numbers so that it works. The person can afford to stay in the house. It makes sense economically. It's less costly to the mortgage holder, and it's certainly better for our community and certainly better for the homeowner to be able to maintain their house. So we restructure the loan. We've had a policy in place that said those restructuring of loans with loan forgiveness does not trigger a taxable event. That makes sense. Everybody agrees on that. We got to extend that policy because it's still needed today. We still need to make that connection between homeowners and the mortgage holders to adjust mortgages where it's appropriate, to avoid foreclosure, to keep neighborhoods more stable, to help individual families, and by the way, to also help the banking institutions because they'll lose less money if they have a person paying their mortgage one time. So that policy is at stake if we do not pass the Expire Act. A couple of the other issues I've been working on personally, I know this one's going to be very important to the presiding officer, and that is the transit benefit parity provision. We had a policy in place that provided parity between those who use transit to get to work and those who are provided parking spaces, and that parity expired. So we need to extend that provision so those who help our energy policy in this country by using transit rather than driving a car, help those who drive a car by having less cars on the road so they can get into their work a little bit easier, and help our environment by taking cars off the road, that they receive a comparable tax break as those who drive their cars to work. That's another provision that is critically important in this Expire Act, and another reason why we have to get this done. The low-income housing tax credit, we've worked on this. This is the most important tool we have available for affordable housing in this country. It's the #1 tool today. And Senator Cantwell and others have worked together to try to make it more effective with certain floors to guarantee a certain amount of help to different communities. We extend that policy in this Expire Act so that we, again, are able to maintain the existing tools that we have today to help provide affordable housing by partnerships with the private sector. This is jobs. This is the private sector being incentivized to construct affordable housing in the community, privately owned, with the government as a partner. It's more cost-effective to the taxpayer and provides a greater stock of affordable housing. That policy is in jeopardy if we cannot pass the underlining bill here. A section that I've worked on with many of my colleagues is the extension of the 179D, which deals with energy efficiency. We all talk about incentives so that when you build a building, you make it energy efficient. It's good policy for our energy, for our environment. We all know it makes us less dependent upon foreign sources of energy, all of the above. And this energy credit has been very, very effective in getting businesses and getting institutions to incorporate energy efficiency when they construct their buildings. So we want to extend that policy, absolutely, and I'm proud of the role that many of us have played in that area to get this extended, but we also want to improve it. And one of the provisions that's improved in the underlining bill is to help nonprofits be able to take advantage of the 179D credit. Because it makes no difference whether it's a commercial venture or a nonprofit venture. We should be friendly to all from the point of view of being able to make buildings more energy efficient. That's what is incorporated under the underlining bill. I must tell you, Mr. President, I hope that we'll have opportunities to offer some amendments, and if we do, I would hope that we could expand that to retrofitting buildings. It's not just new construction, but we should also be dealing with older buildings from the point of view of giving incentives for retrofitting and saving energy, saving costs, making this country more efficient, creating more jobs, and by the way, also helping our environment. All that can be done, and the Expire bill helps us move forward on all those issues. A provision I worked on with Senator Schumer, Section 181, deals with film expensing rules. This is very important because filmmaking, whether it's for the theater or for TV, is a global competition. This is no longer just whether it's going to be done in your state or my state. It's whether it's going to be done in America or it's whether it's going to be done in another country. We have certain provisions in the code to make it easier for companies to locate in our states. I'm proud of the filmmaking industry in Maryland. It's very important to our economy. Literally hundreds of jobs depend upon this. every week, literally, when we have new companies coming in. Extending this credit will help us in that regard, and that's in the underlying bill. A provision I worked with Senator Portman, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. This is a credit that we give to employers who hire very difficult to hire individuals. And it's been very successful in getting people who would otherwise be unemployed, getting them jobs. A company takes a risk factor, they're compensated for it because it's a more vulnerable group of unemployed workers. Well, with Senator Portman and I introduced an amendment to expand that to long-term unemployed. Long-term unemployed, we all know, are when an employer is looking for someone to hire, they don't normally go to the long-term unemployed list. This will allow us to deal that, takes the pressure off of the unemployment insurance system, and again provides incentives for job growth and help us. That's in this bill. Mr. President, I could go on and on and on. There are literally dozens and dozens of similar provisions that are extended and improved by the underlying bill. That's what the Finance Committee did under Senator Wyden and Senator Hatch's leadership. We looked at all these provisions and said, which ones should we extend, which ones should we modify? And the next thing we want to do is make permanent decisions. We know the uncertainty is not healthy. We know that we've got to make permanent decisions on which credits are going to be there, which ones are not. We want a level playing field as far as the tax code is concerned. But you can't get there unless this bill is first passed. This gives us the 2-year window in order to pass tax reform. It's called Expire for a reason, because we don't want to see temporary provisions in the tax code. We think we should make permanent judgment. And this bill gives us the chance to do that. So it will help us from the point of view of a more predictable tax policy. It will help us create jobs. There's no question about it. It does help small businesses. They're the ones that are most at risk by our failure to act. The uncertainty and the timing of this affects small businesses more. It would increase the tax burden based upon current policy of companies in this country and individuals. It's not only businesses, individuals' tax burdens will go up if we don't pass this bill. This is not the time that any of this should be done. It makes abundant sense for us to move this bill forward. So let's find the way to do it. I must tell you, traditionally, tax bills come out of the Finance Committee are not an open process for amendments. I understand that. I think most of my colleagues understand that. So let's use reason to figure out a path forward so at the end of the day we can pass this most important legislation and help our economy grow. Mr. President, I would suggest the absence of quorum.